In 1977, Ford executives sat in a boardroom and made a calculation that paying death settlements to burn victims would be cheaper than fixing a lethal defect. The cost to save a human life, $11 per car. This is the story of corporate manslaughter, miscalculated cost-benefit analysis, and the car that changed product safety laws forever. August 1968. The American automotive industry is under siege. Volkswagen Beetles are everywhere. Japanese imports are flooding the market. Small, fuel-efficient foreign cars are stealing customers from Detroit's giants. Ford Motor Company's president, Lee Iacocca, is a man with a vision and a deadline. He wants to build an American subcompact car that can destroy the foreign competition. But there's a catch. It has to weigh under 2,000 pounds, cost under $2,000, and be in showrooms within 2 years. The automotive industry typically takes 3 to 4 years to develop a new car. Iacocca is demanding it in 24 months. Engineers are told this isn't optional. This is war. They call it the Pinto. Small, affordable, American-made. The car that would save Ford from the import invasion. The design teams work around the clock. Every department is under pressure to cut costs and meet Iacocca's impossible deadline. But in the race to beat foreign competitors, something terrible is about to be overlooked. Something that will turn thousands of ordinary Americans into human torches. Spring 1970. In Ford's testing facility in Dearborn, Michigan, engineers are conducting mandatory rear impact crash tests. What they're about to discover will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Test after test shows the same horrifying result. When the Pinto is struck from behind at speeds above 25 miles per hour, the fuel tank ruptures. Gasoline sprays into the passenger compartment. The doors jam shut from the impact. And in the presence of any spark, the car becomes an inferno. The problem is simple, but deadly. To meet Iacocca's weight requirements, engineers place the fuel tank between the rear axle and the rear bumper. Just inches separate it from the car's thin rear panel. There's virtually no crush space to absorb impact. When the Pinto is rear-ended, the tank is punctured by the differential housing bolts. The filler pipe tears loose. Doors jam from body deformation. Passengers are trapped inside as gasoline floods the cabin. The engineers know immediately this is a catastrophic design flaw. They document everything: photos, test data, recommendations for fixes. They estimate that for about $11 per car, they can add a rubber bladder to protect the tank or relocate it to a safer position. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. Those recommendations go up the chain of command to Ford's top executives, and a decision is made that will define corporate evil for generations to come. Ford's executives look at the numbers. There are several ways to fix the problem. A rubber bladder inside the tank, a plastic shield between the tank and the differential, relocating the tank above the rear axle. Each solution costs between $8 and $11 per vehicle. Ford projects they'll sell millions of Pintos. Let's say conservative estimate, 11 million vehicles over the car's lifetime. At $11 per car, the total cost to fix the defect before production, $121 million. So Ford's executives commission a cost-benefit analysis. Not unusual for automotive companies. But what happens next becomes one of the most infamous documents in corporate history. They create a memo titled, "Fatalities Associated with Crash-Induced Fuel Leakage and Fires." In cold, clinical language, Ford estimates how many people will die if they don't fix the defect. Their calculations: 180 burn deaths, 180 serious burn injuries, and 2,100 burned vehicles over the Pinto's lifetime. Then, they assign a dollar value to each category. A human life, $200,000. A serious burn injury, $67,000. A burned vehicle, $700. The total cost of not fixing the defect, $49.5 million. The cost of fixing it, $121 million. The decision is made. It's cheaper to let people burn. Ford approves the Pinto for production with the known defect. No warning labels, no customer disclosure. Nothing. On September 11, 1970, the first Ford Pinto rolls off the assembly line. It looks cheerful, affordable, distinctly American. Families buy them by the thousands, completely unaware they're driving a potential death trap. And then the fires begin May 28, 1972, Orange County, California. Lily's new Ford Pinto stalls in the middle lane of the highway. Before she can restart it, a Ford Galaxy traveling 30 miles per hour strikes them from behind. Not a high-speed collision, the kind of fender bender that happens thousands of times every day. But this is a Pinto. The fuel tank ruptures instantly. Gasoline floods the interior. The car bursts into flames within seconds. The doors, jammed from the impact, won't open. Lily Gray dies at the scene. Richard Grimshaw suffers burns over 90% of his body. He undergoes over 50 surgeries. His face is permanently disfigured. He's 13 years old. It's not an isolated incident. Over the next few years, similar accidents occur across America. Names, faces, lives. Each accident follows the same pattern. Low-speed rear impact, fuel tank rupture, fire, jammed doors, victims trapped inside. By 1977, safety investigators estimate that between 500 and 900 people have died in Pinto fires. Thousands more suffer catastrophic burns. Meet Byron Block, one of America's first automotive safety consultants. In 1971, just a year after the Pinto's release, he examines a burned-out Pinto for a legal case. What he finds shocks him. The fuel tank design is so obviously dangerous that he can't believe it passed safety review. He begins documenting Pinto fire cases, building a database of victims and accident patterns. But Block isn't the only one noticing. Trial lawyers across America are filing lawsuits against Ford. And in discovery, they find something explosive. Internal Ford documents proving the company knew about the defect before production. Those crash test photos. The safety recommendations. The cost-benefit analysis. The fatalities associated with crash-induced fuel, leakage and fires memo. All of it surfaces in court. February 1978. Santa Ana, California. The Richard Grimshaw lawsuit goes to trial. It's one of the first cases where Ford's internal documents are presented to a jury. For the first time, ordinary Americans see the cold calculations Ford executives made. The jury hears about the $11 fix. The cost-benefit analysis that valued human life at $200,000. The deliberate decision to let people burn rather than spend money on safety. The jury is horrified. On February 6, 1978, they award Richard Grimshaw $2.8 million in compensatory damages. But they don't stop there. They award $125 million in punitive damages. One of the largest punitive damage awards in American history at that time. The message is clear. What Ford did wasn't just negligent. It was morally reprehensible. The verdict makes national headlines. Suddenly, everyone knows about the Ford Pinto and its deadly defect. Public outrage reaches fever pitch. May 8, 1978. Under mounting pressure, Ford finally recalls 1.5 million Pintos. The stated reason: safety improvements to fuel system. They don't use the word defect. The fix? A plastic shield between the fuel tank and the differential, plus a longer filler pipe with a better seal. Total cost: about $20 per car. Had they implemented this from the beginning, hundreds of lives could have been saved. But the recall comes too late for families like the Ulrichs of Elkhart, Indiana. August 10, 1978, 3 months after the recall announcement, but before many Pintos have been repaired. Judy Ulrich, 18, is driving her sister Lynn, 16, and their cousin Donna, 18, in a 1973 Ford Pinto on U.S. Highway 33. They're heading to a church volleyball game. A typical American summer day. 3 teenagers with their whole lives ahead of them. Their Pinto's engine stalls. Judy pulls onto the shoulder and tries to restart it. Behind them, a Chevrolet van driven by Robert Duggar is approaching. He's doing 50 to 60 miles per hour. The van slams into the Pinto's rear end. The fuel tank ruptures exactly as Ford's engineers predicted 8 years earlier. The car explodes into flames. The doors jam shut. All 3 girls are trapped inside. Judy and Lynn Ulrich burn to death. Donna Ulrich dies hours later from her injuries. They're 18, 16, and 18 years old. But this time, something different happens. This time, there will be criminal charges. Michael Cosentino, the local prosecutor in Elkhart County, does something unprecedented in American legal history. He charges Ford Motor Company with 3 counts of reckless homicide. It's the first time in American history that a corporation is charged with homicide for manufacturing decisions. The case becomes a national sensation. The trial begins January 7, 1980, in Winamac, Indiana. Ford assembles a dream team of lawyers. They spend an estimated $1 million on their defense, more than the entire budget of the prosecutor's office. The prosecution presents Ford's documents, the crash tests, the cost-benefit analysis, the memo valuing human life, testimony from victims' families, expert witnesses on automotive safety. Ford's defense argues that the Pinto met all federal safety standards at the time, that the van driver, Robert Duggar, was at fault, that prosecuting a corporation for homicide sets a dangerous precedent. March 13, 1980. After 25 hours of deliberation, the jury returns a verdict. Not guilty on all counts. Ford is acquitted. But it's a Pyrrhic victory. The trial has exposed Ford's decision-making process to the world. The company's reputation is permanently damaged. Pinto name becomes synonymous with corporate greed and moral bankruptcy. Lee Iacocca, the man who demanded the Pinto be built in 25 months, leaves Ford in 1978. He goes on to revive Chrysler and becomes a business icon, but the Pinto scandal follows him forever. Ford discontinues the Pinto in 1980. Total production, 3 million vehicles. Estimated deaths from fuel tank fires, somewhere between 500 and 900, though exact numbers remain disputed. The Ford Pinto case changed everything. It changed how we think about corporate responsibility. It changed product safety law. It changed automotive design standards, and it gave us a disturbing glimpse into how corporate decision-making can go catastrophically wrong. Today, the Pinto cost-benefit memo is taught in every business ethics class in America. The case led to stricter federal motor vehicle safety standards. It strengthened consumer protection laws. It made it easier for victims to sue corporations for punitive damages. It established precedents for corporate criminal liability that are still cited today. In 1991, Ford settled hundreds of civil lawsuits for an undisclosed amount rumored to exceed $1 billion. Adjusted for inflation, that's far more than the $121 million it would have cost to fix the defect in the first place. The $11 decision to let people burn ultimately cost Ford billions in lawsuits, recalls, lost sales, and destroyed reputation. A catastrophic miscalculation in every sense. Today, if you search for Ford Pinto online, you'll find thousands of stories. Burn victims who survived, families who lost loved ones, lawyers who fought Ford in court, engineers who tried to stop the car from being made. Some Pinto owners still maintain their cars as classics, arguing that with proper modifications they're perfectly safe. Others see them as death traps that should be removed from the roads entirely. But the ghost of the Pinto haunts every automotive boardroom. It's the cautionary tale whispered when executives push for faster development or cheaper components. It's the case study referenced when engineers raise safety concerns. It's the reminder that some decisions can't be undone. But we know this. Every single death was preventable for $11 per car, for the cost of a few movie tickets, for less than a tank of gas. That's the true horror of the Ford Pinto story. Not that the defect existed. Engineering mistakes happen. The horror is that the defect was discovered, a fix was designed, the cost was calculated, and the decision was made to let people die anyway. In corporate boardrooms across America, executives still make decisions that affect lives. Ford Pinto leaves us with this question. When corporations do those calculations today, what value do they place on your life? Between 1971 and 1980, the Ford Pinto was involved in an estimated 500 to 900 fatal fire accidents. Ford recalled 1.5 million vehicles in 1978. The company paid over $1 billion in settlements. No Ford executive was ever convicted of a crime. The $11 fix was never implemented during initial production. In memory of all those who died in Ford Pinto fires, including Lily Gray, Richard Grimshaw, survived with catastrophic injuries. Subscribe for more documentaries on corporate decisions that changed history. Leave a comment with your thoughts on corporate criminal liability. What other automotive scandals should we investigate?